For a little while now, I've been looking at the effect that early abuse and neglect can have on an adult. The first one took a general look at abuse, the second one was about neglect, the third one was about physical abuse, and the fourth video looked at what beliefs someone can have as an adult if they were abused and or neglected as a child. And in this video I'm going to look at one of the other ways that abuse and neglect can affect someone as an adult, and I will look at how someone can live in different survival modes as an adult. And when this takes place, it will be because they will feel overwhelmed, and one of these survival mechanisms will take over to basically ensure their survival. And these will be survival mechanisms that they would have used most likely as a child to survive. And this is something that just happens, so they won't need to think about, oh, I need to deploy this survival mechanism now. It will just happen. And so when they were children, they would have been powerless, dependent. They wouldn't have been able to do much to protect themselves. So these survival mechanisms would have allowed them to survive. And even though now they are an adult, they are still going to utilize these survival mechanisms. And so whenever they feel overwhelmed as an adult, one of these will kick in and they will no longer act like they usually would. And of course, if someone has a tendency to experience one of these survival mechanisms, it can cause them lots of problems. But even if it's just something that happens from time to time, it can still cause them problems. So let's take a look at these survival mechanisms. So the first one I've got down is the flight mode. And when they go into this survival mechanism, they can feel the need to get away, to run away, to just move, to leave somewhere. So they could be in a meeting or with a friend or out in the evening or something like that, and just feel the need to get away, to move. And once after this has taken place, so once they no longer feel overwhelmed, they can settle down and perhaps wonder what is going on and what was going on. And if they have the tendency to behave in this way, they can find it hard to just be and to sit still, because they're always going to have the need to be on the go, because to part of their brain, if they don't, they will end up basically dying. So they've got to move to survive. And as an adult, obviously there's more that they can do to protect themselves. They could think, what's going on here? Do I really need to move? But once this kicks in, they won't be able to think rationally. And the next one is freeze mode. And when someone is in freeze mode, their body can just seize up, their mind can go blank. And when this happens, they won't be running away from danger. They will basically be playing dead and hoping that the danger will come to an end. And this is something that is often seen when in the wild, where there's the prey and then there's a predator, and once the predator gets hold of the prey, they can catch it. The prey can basically play dead, so it's like they are no longer alive. And once that happens, the predator can basically walk off and find something else to kill. And then after a little while, the prey can basically shake the trauma off and then run away. And this is because playing dead can be a way for them to basically be invisible and to no longer be seen as a threat. So that'll be a way for them to ensure they will survive. And as an adult, when they go into this mode, they can go silent, they can find it hard to move. So if this happens a lot, they can be very passive, they can be seen as someone that is shy and quiet, and it will be as if something has taken over, like they are possessed by something else, and they just won't be able to move. It can be like they're in a straitjacket, seized up and completely trapped. And the next one I've got here is dissociation. And when this happens, they won't go anywhere, so they won't freeze up and they won't run away, but they will basically disconnect from themselves. So their body will still be there, but their mind can be somewhere else, can be as if they're on the ceiling or something like that. And this again will be a way for them to handle the pain they are in. without having to go anywhere. So of course their body can still be harmed and they'll still be traumatized, but they will disconnect, their psyche will disconnect. The next one I've got here is the fight mode. And when someone goes into fight mode, they're not going to run away, they're not going to freeze, they're not going to disconnect from themselves, but they will get ready to fight, get ready for battle. So they can be filled with aggression and adrenaline, and that will be their focus, to survive by killing or destroying whatever is in front of them. And if someone has a tendency to go in this mode, they can be seen as someone who has anger problems, someone who lacks self-control. People can be scared of them. They can end up losing jobs, destroying friendships, and of course they're not going to be able to think rationally. So after this one and all these survival modes take place, they can think what was going on. And this is because their thinking brain will have been hijacked. But although now they are an adult, and generally they're not going to need these survival mechanisms until they can deal with the trauma within them that is causing them to feel overwhelmed, to be triggered by whatever. Could be a smell, could be a sound, could simply just be by getting close to people. Because when there is early trauma, complex PTSD as they call it, doesn't necessarily need a trigger. Simply just being around others can do it. And when this happens, all the arousal kicks in within them and they will just naturally go into one of these modes. So for this to change and for them to be able to operate as a whole human being, to think rationally, they will need to resolve this trauma, to gradually work through the layers. And as they do this, it will get easier for them to think, what's going on here? I'm being triggered. What's going on? How can I respond in the right way? And then as they keep going and working through this trauma, they will get triggered less and less and less, so they will no longer need to go into these modes. So if you can relate to this, my suggestion would be for you to reach out for external support. It could be from a therapist or a healer, because what happened wasn't your fault and you don't deserve to experience life in this way. So please reach out for support.